Maurice White, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. High Five Hoops, what's going on? Keish 831, thanks for joining in. Coach Henry, welcome. Willie, what's going on, young bull? Big Dom, what's going on, man? Puffy Walker, thanks for joining. Doing good, Don. Doing real good, man. Appreciate you coming on, man. So if you guys, I have a question box on here. If there's a question mark at the bottom of your screen, that's where I want you to put the questions. If you put your questions like in the feed, as people come on, I lose them in the feed. So if there's a question box on your screen and you want to ask a question, put it in the question box so that it stays with me so I can make sure I get to as many questions as possible. Hey, mama. All right, it's 7 o'clock, so we're going to kick this thing off because we got to get ready for the last dance tonight. So welcome everybody to the Positive Podcast. Tonight is a special night tonight. So due to the recent COVID-19, the NCAA eligibility center has issued a waiver to 2020 graduates this year, and I wanted to kind of get some things cleared up. I wanted to give parents an opportunity who don't understand how the NCAA eligibility thing works, to get some clear and concise insight on the topic. So if you have a kid who's playing ball, or you coach in an organization, or whatever the case may be, to me, this is just as important as your X's and O's, because you're trying to get kids into college. So joining us tonight, I have the Associate Athletic Director of Compliance from UAlbany, Melissa Peach, coming on. So get your questions ready, and she's going to answer as many questions as she can. All right? Let me bring her in. Peace, Croc. There you go. How you doing?
Great. Thanks for
Good.
having me. Good to see
Absolutely.
you.
Nah, you too as well. So the first question, I got to know how's everything going? You staying safe? What's going on up there?
We just finished week 5 from working from home. So
Right.
this has been an interesting adjustment like everyone else has had. But I'm fortunate to have employment. So no complaints about, working from home and that whole thing. We're just trying to take care of our current athletes on campus. And then, we've got an incoming class
Right.
in for the fall that there's just a lot of questions with what's going on, and
Right.
trying to answer everybody's questions to the best of our ability right now. Everything's changing every week.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, obviously you and I have spoken a lot in the past about, about initial eligibility is something that I follow very, very closely. So when this waiver came out, I wanted to make sense, because one of the questions that we had was, well, with this COVID-19, like, what's going to happen with, the 2020 recruits? Like, a lot of people are, obviously everybody's doing distant learning, and everybody's kind of going to a pass fail format. So how does the pass fail affect the sliding scale and everything like that? So when they came out with this thing, explain a little bit about the waiver. So the first thing is, what grades are they taking? Like, are the grades for this year wiped out, and we're just going with having the 10 core classes before they stepped on campus? How is that working for the 2020 recruits?
Sure. I'll start from the top right with it. So this waiver, this initial eligibility waiver, is for any student who is going to be graduating in spring or summer 2020, and that graduation date is based off of their year 9 enrollment. So some of this policy that I'm going to talk about as well is going to apply to subsequent classes moving forward. So your 2021s, your 2022s, that's kind of to be determined, just depending on what keeps transpiring over the next couple of months. So for any individual with an expected graduation date of spring or summer 2020, if they've met a couple of requirements, they will get this waiver. The first one is that they've met what we call in Division I, the 10-7 rule. So before the start of the 7th semester, they have to have 10 core courses completed. And out of those 10, 7 of those have to be English, math, or natural physical science. The other piece of it is, if based off of those core courses, if the student has a core GPA of at least 2.3, then the NCAA is going to provide them that initial eligibility relief, and they will be a qualifier given access to athletic aid, practice, and competition in their first year of enrollment this fall. So the test scores are essentially excluded for this class. I've got a whole couple things I'll just roll right through here, because I think it'll answer some of your questions for you already. So in a student's eligibility center account, they're going to see a final non-qualifier status, but not to be alarmed, because next to it, it'll say COVID-19 automatic waiver approved,
Right.
if the individual qualifies for that waiver. The NSA is targeting a May 1st date to start reviewing the accounts and applying those waivers to students based off the documentation they have in. So, we're encouraging kids to get their most updated transcripts in. I know it's a little challenging right now because schools are closed
Right.
or everyone's working remotely, but a lot of guidance counselors can upload those electronically. So we really encourage kids to do that. It's not a requirement, but it's really highly recommended from the NCAA that once the student graduates this spring or summer to try to submit that official final transcript with proof of graduation to the Eligibility Center. If access to an official transcript can't happen, they are accepting unofficial transcripts. So they're offering a lot of flexibility to students right now. With regards to pass-fail, the NCAA is understanding that a lot of schools are just moving to that. So if a student passes a course, they will automatically get assigned a 2.3 score for that core course. If for some reason that ends up lowering their overall core GPA, then the NCAA is going to try to look at other core courses they've previously taken. So they don't want to negatively affect their core GPA by this pass-fail system that we're kind of temporarily going under.
Mm-hmm. So I guess one of my questions is, you said when they go into the system and they have like the approved, the COVID-19 approved waiver, there's a possibility that some kids won't qualify?
That's correct. So if the student hasn't met those two prongs, having a current core GPA of 2.3 and meeting that 10-7 rule, then they're not going to meet the COVID-19 automatic waiver, and then they'll have to go through a different certification process. So for those individuals, what they'll end up doing is taking up to 6 core courses that are taken after the start of the 7th semester. So usually you can't bulk up in your senior year anymore.
Right.
Those rules changed a few years ago. So they're offering kind of some old school flexibility and kind of reverting back in time on that to analyze a student's initial eligibility.
Okay. Are there kids on campus right now? Like, are there kids who didn't have the ability? Do you guys have some international athletes who weren't able to travel back, to get out of New York?
We do. We have some living on campus and then some in the immediate campus community in their apartments.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a few internationals, some kids that were from downstate, New York City, Long Island, that felt it was safer up here. Mm-hmm. So we've been reaching out to them. The coaches have been staying in touch with them every week, checking in on them. And a lot of our students have academic meetings with their academic advisors. So they've been doing that remotely as another way to check in too, because this is obviously moving to online learning completely is very challenging for everyone involved.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're talking to Melissa Peach, Associate Athletic Director of Compliance at UAlbany. If you guys have any questions, type your questions in right now. She's here to answer any questions that you might have. If you have a young kid and you need to understand the initial eligibility process, please ask her these questions now. So we're just talking about kids that are seniors right now that are graduating this year because it's more pressing. But like I said, if you coach a team, if you have a program or you have a child that's playing and has aspirations of playing Division I or Division II athletics, which all of them do, then to me, this is the most important thing. So let's take the whole, the whole initial eligibility thing, and peel it back layer by layer for everybody else who might not have a 2020 kid. And let's start off with what is a core class? Because we talk about core classes a lot. Like, what is a core class?
Excellent question. So every high school in the United States has a list of core courses on file with the NCAA Eligibility Center. So the guidance office at each high school submits their curriculum and descriptions of all their curriculum. And the NCAA determines whether those courses are considered core courses or not, and what might be missing to make them a core course. So when we're talking about these core courses, and I feel like a broken record saying that a million
Hmm.
times,
Hmm.
but we're talking about your Algebra 1, your geometry, your Englishes. So you're talking your English, your math, your natural physical sciences, so like biology, chemistry, physics, earth science, forensics. You're also talking social studies, so US history, government, global studies. Then you're looking at foreign languages as well, and it can be anything from Mandarin to Spanish, French, Italian, German, Latin. So there's a variety of categories. And for the NCAA, they require that you have 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 3 years of natural or physical science, and then in addition to that, one additional year of English, math, or science, 2 years of social studies, and then 4 additional years of core courses, which can be any of the ones I just mentioned, or they can also be those foreign language courses.
Right. So ninth grade you're coming in. So do you find that most schools, if they stay on the Regents track, pretty much will qualify you NCAA wise? Um, Talk about a little bit. I'm a kid who's a lazy student. I don't want to take algebra 1, so I might take business math because it's easier. It's easier for me. Talk to them about, but I did take math for 4 years. So talk to the parents about what that business math class might do because it might be on a denied course list.
Yeah, that's correct. And not only thinking about the NCAA requirements, but colleges have particular requirements for numbers of years of English, a certain level, reaching a certain level of math. A lot of times, you have to have at least Algebra 2 for college for entrance. So, and in the most of them do require a foreign language to be taken, and depending on your program. So, if you take a foreign language and you score high enough on the Regents exam in New York State, then you're exempt from a lot of schools from having to take a foreign language in college if that's not a field you're looking to pursue. So it's really important not only for the initial eligibility side of it, but to think about the college admissions process and having a sturdy academic background. And it really does start in the ninth grade. But what's great too is that if the student takes like a high school level course in junior high, as long as it shows up on their high school transcript, that can be used as a core course as well.
Okay, so when a kid takes Spanish 8 and then in eighth grade, and then they go to high school and they take Spanish 2 as a freshman, that Spanish 8 counts as the first year of Spanish?
That's correct.
Okay. So we take our core classes every year. And then I'm a junior in high school. I just finished my junior year of high school. And now I'm going into my senior year. How many core courses need to be talk about the 10 let's talk about the 10-7 rule again with the 2.3 GPA.
Yep. The NSA has a requirement that before the start of the seventh semester, which is typically your first semester of your senior year of high school, that you have completed 10 core courses, so those English, math, sciences, so on. 7 of those 10 have to be in English, math, or science, and those get locked in to your core course GPA. So what they do is they take the highest scores possible and to try and give you the highest core course GPA possible.
Okay. So now with my 10 classes locked in and my 7 in the certain core subjects, and I got my 2.3. What's the difference between if I just get the 2.3 or let's say in my core classes I have a 3.5? How does the 3.5 benefit me than the 2.3?
So the other piece of it, and it's not the case this year given COVID-19 and how it's affected initial eligibility, but they have a sliding scale. So the higher your core GPA is, the lower of a SAT or ACT score that you need to be deemed eligible. And what's nice is that, and students should really start taking the SAT or ACT in their junior year. You can take it as many times as you need to, and the NCAA will take your highest sub-scores and combine them to give you the best overall score possible. So if you did really well on the math the first time around, they're going to use that to try and benefit you and get you closer to being fully eligible.
Okay. So I'm a senior in high school and I got 9 core classes done. Am I screwed Division 1 and Division 2, or is there an option for me?
You're going to end up probably falling potentially under what's called an academic red shirt. So in that case, depending on how well you do the rest of the way out, you could be eligible to practice and receive aid in your first semester, in your first year of enrollment at a collegiate institution. In order to get competition, you have to complete a year in residence. So you'd have to be there 1 full academic year in order to be eligible to compete at that institution.
Okay. Or is prep school an option?
Prep school is an option. So with that being said, if you or the individual has graduated within 4 years from the start of year 9, so if they have graduated on time, they are able to use 1 core course to help in their prep school year to help meet eligibility requirements. So if you're short 1 class or you need to get your core GPA up, so that's definitely an option for students as well, but it doesn't override the 10-7 rule. The 10-7 rule, you have to complete that before you enter your senior year.
Okay. So now with the sliding scale, I am a 4.0 student. So I've gotten all my credits and I've got a 4.0 GPA, and I'm at the top of the sliding scale with the SAT score. Is that SAT score necessarily going to get me into the college? So talk about NCAA guidelines and then institutional guidelines.
Yeah, so I had the sliding scale pulled up on my computer and it just timed out on me actually, so I'm pulling it back up again just to give you an example. So if you have a core GPA of 3.55 or higher, you only need a 400 on the SAT or a 37 ACT sum score to be eligible, assuming you meet all the other requirements with the core courses and the timing of the core courses. But that test score will not get you into college. It absolutely will not. Colleges, just speaking very generally, because their standards are very different across the country, but even with something like a 920, you're looking at not getting admitted to a college. You've got to score in the 1,000 to 1,200 range to be admitted, and that depends on the institution. Some institutions have higher requirements for the SAT and ACT.
Now let me ask this question. I am the #1 basketball recruit in the country. Will Brown wants me on campus, and UAlbany is an option for me. I'm the #1 recruit. I could be one and done. And I'm a smart kid, but I'm just not a good test taker. Because I got a high GPA, will Albany not let me in as the #1 recruit, even though I'm NCAA eligible? Will they not let me in?
Yeah, if you were scoring like a 400, you would not be admissible to UAlbany. So it doesn't matter, unfortunately, how good you are. You still have to meet the NCAA's requirements to be able to receive aid practice and compete in your first year. And the NCAA has these standards in place based off of research to academically prepare kids for the rigors of college. It's much different than high school. And that first year is really tough for a lot of students.
Yes, no question about it. So what is your advice to, I think a lot of kids come into high school and feel like they got 4 years of high school. So we're just getting used to things our freshman year. We'll start kicking it in gear our junior year. So, like, what is your advice? I don't think a lot of kids like they don't understand that all 4 years are important.
Yeah, well, I think anyone who's on here tonight is doing the right thing and getting educated. The NCAA has a lot of resources on their website. They're very easy to follow and understand with a lot of graphics. It's not like reading the NCAA manual, which is what we have to do on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm.
They have a checklist of what you need to do in the ninth grade. And with that is you need to meet with your high school guidance counselor and just make sure you're starting a course path that will get you to, being NCAA eligible, but also putting you in a good position to get admitted to colleges, wherever it is that you want to go. With the ninth grade, we recommend the student register with the Eligibility Center. They're going to start receiving email communications with information from the NCAA, any updates that they might have. They've been very proactive in the past couple of years in their outreach to students who have accounts to provide updated transcripts. So they will give early reads, we call them, and show if there are any deficiencies, what they are. So it helps the student understand on a very elementary level, like what they might be deficient in and understanding what they need to do moving forward to become eligible.
Okay. So now, so the kid, so the student athlete and their parent are going through this process and everything. And so there's an NCAA worksheet that has to be, submitted through the clearinghouse. Talk about that a little bit as far as, you know, keeping track of your transcript grades and stuff like that and having them on this worksheet and submitting them to the clearinghouse for them to view.
Yeah, they do have available to the public like an Excel sheet almost where you can plug in the courses you've taken and the scores you've received on them and the number of credits it's worth. And, your guidance counselors should be pretty in tune with the list of core courses for their particular school. If they're not, you can always reach out to a local D1 or D2 college or even D3 and just see, hey, I need some help understanding the eligibility process, or my school doesn't have an approved list of core courses. How do we get them to get that taken care of? So we will have nationwide probably 2 or 3 schools a year that we're working with that have recruits that are coming in that we have to help them get their list of core courses in. Otherwise, the student will not be getting an eligibility center status and they'll be considered a non-qualifier, which is unfortunate for that student.
Right. So a couple questions for me. Does it cost to be a part of the clearinghouse?
It does. There is a one-time registration fee for signing up, and what they do is they look at all your transcripts, your test scores, and they have that outreach. The amount has currently left my head right now. I don't deal with primarily initial eligibility at my institution anymore. That's my assistant AD, but I'm going to pull it up on the screen just to share it with you. I don't know if we have any international kids on this or international parents on this call because their registration fee is a little bit higher.
Right.
So, and there is an opportunity if a student can provide particular documentation to get a fee waiver. So there is a process that the NCAA can explain to the family if they're in a really hard financial situation that they may qualify for a fee waiver.
Right. Absolutely. And while you're looking up that information, so let's talk about the role of the guidance counselors. Like, do a lot of guidance counselors in the school, do you find, like, do they reach out to people like you to find out, like, are we doing the right thing by the athletes? Or, do you find that, most guidance counselors want to say, nah, we got this under control. And then I'm sure you've seen some transcripts where the school didn't do their job, with the kid. Like, how do you feel? Like, how do you feel about that? Do you guys do any outreach to the guidance counselors in your area?
We do. In the past, we've offered sessions for guidance counselors or parents to come in, and we give a presentation on the recruiting process and the initial eligibility center process as well, go over all the academic requirements. We talk about like camps and clinics, kind of like red flag things to look out for. There's some scammy things out there, and just making sure that a family's money is well spent if they're sending their son or daughter to camps and clinics and showcases, because there's, as you know, there's thousands of those out there, and
Absolutely.
some of them aren't. They're a little scammy, I guess we can say. So, but with that being said, we've had schools in this area reach out to us, and that's pretty typical in our industry to have schools reach out to their local D1 or D2 school to come in and give an eligibility presentation. So we'll go in and meet with high school guidance counselors and a couple of coaches, or they have like a junior night and they want us to do a session with the family on initial eligibility and recruiting.
Okay, good. Another question was, does the SAT hold more weight than the ACT?
It does not. But for some reason, and I don't know the research or the science behind it, but students who struggle with the SAT seem to do better on the ACT. So, just in my professional opinion and in my years of experience, if your son or daughter is struggling with the SAT, they just can't do it. Try the ACT. You might have more success there. Again, I don't know the reasoning why, but we've found that to work for a lot of students.
So if, like I think you said, if they had a 3.5 or higher, that they had to get a 400 on the SAT and a 37 combined on the ACT. So it doesn't matter which way. It doesn't matter to you guys which way you get it. You just have to meet the requirement.
Exactly.
Okay, so if I got a 39 on my ACT, but you see I got a 350 on my SAT, you guys wouldn't be like, well, what's going on with the SAT? You guys would just say he got the 39 that he needed on the ACT. He's through.
Yeah. Well, and you got to keep into consideration the university's requirements. So they will look at the breakdown of the different sections of the test. So if somebody scored extremely poorly in math, that may be a red flag for admissions purposes. So, you got to, both of them are great options. And like I said, for whatever reason, some students just have more success and find it that they can score higher with the ACT.
Okay.
I'm
Is
not
there
getting paid to publicize that.
right? Is there a way? Is there a website that you can give our listeners where to find this information, specifically the new COVID-19 waiver?
Yes. If you Google NCAA COVID-19, you'll find the initial eligibility requirements. It's a couple page FAQ that goes over everything that I just went over. They also have a bunch of different resources. I'm happy to share that with you so you can pass along to any of your listeners. We do have information on our site, and it's I'm not promoting UAlbany, but it's just information that students in general would need when they're going through the process. So if you Google UAlbany athletic compliance, we have a prospective student athletes tab where we have a lot of that information there.
So, if I'm a parent of a student athlete going into ninth grade, they should be able to, right? I should be able to look at my child's schedule and then match it up with the approved classes or the denied classes and see what's going on in that, to make sure that they're on point, correct?
Yeah, I would do that in consultation with the guidance counselor that the son or daughter is assigned to.
Okay. And so now I'm looking at the accepted course list for for my child. So my child is taking she's taking geometry 1, but on the approved core list, on the approved course list, it's called something else. Could that, if I don't say anything about it, could that affect me?
It could. It could. So in our world too, sometimes we're reaching out to because the transcripts we see versus what's in the list of core courses for all the schools, it may not match up. And we want to be 100% sure that that's going to be an approved list because if on the approved list, because if it's not that same course, then we need to mitigate and get the student in a course that's going to count. So definitely consult with the guidance counselor. If you're being heavily recruited by particular schools, or you're just curious, reach out to a Division I or Division II compliance person and just ask for help. I mean, we help people, every year that they're not intending to come to UAlbany, but they're just trying to learn the process, and that's part of what we do because it is really overwhelming and there's a lot of bad information out there, unfortunately.
So is it very easy for the school to, let's say if like my child's transcript comes to you and you say, hey, and we get a call from the coach saying, hey, listen, Mr. Dozier, this class that we're seeing is not on the approved list. Oh, they just call it something else. Is it easy for me to say, I'm going to go up to the school tomorrow and let my guidance department know about it? Like, listen, you guys got my child in Geometry 1, but you call it something else. Is it easy for them to change it, or can it turn into a whole big thing?
They'll be able to let you know if it's just a semantics thing between the transcript and the list of approved courses, or if the curriculum has changed and they need to update it. We can see in the accounts when the core course list was most recently updated or if it's never even been touched. So, just keeping that constant communication and just making sure that it's matching up, because we've definitely had instances, like you said, where the name was slightly different and because it wasn't actually the same course, unfortunately. So then it wasn't an approved course.
Okay. So now are the NCAA, are they looking at course descriptions? You know what I mean? Like, will they go through my child's high school? Will they go look at the course description? Like, explain to me what goes on in the background. Is it just as simple? Is it just as simple as me submitting my transcript? So once they receive my child's transcript, what are they doing with my child's transcript? Are they just matching it up to the approved? Okay, Geometry 1, Earth Science and Earth Science, or is it more in depth?
So on the back end, when they're setting up each schools, or they're working with each school to set up their list of approved courses, they're looking at the curriculum in its totality. So if there's any new course offerings or a lot of name title changes to courses, the school's responsible to keep that updated information. Admittedly, some schools are better than others, but it's all about educating, right? There's a lot of good resources out there now for high school guidance counselors too. So we try to work with them one-on-one when we see that maybe they need some updating and kind of help them through the process. They have a portal that they go into and upload their curriculum. So the NSA has a whole manual of how they go through and approve core courses. So they do take a very thorough look at that. And it can be challenging with a lot of these with charter schools, or sometimes the school, there's a lot of different schools in the New York City education system. So, we want to take a closer look at schools like that.
Okay. So I'm a UAlbany recruit. When do you get, when does my transcript come across your office's desk?
Depends on the coaching staff. We have coaches that will give us junior year transcripts because they want an early read. They don't want to be recruiting a kid that is not going to end up being eligible, or that's not going to be able to be academically successful at our institution. So that if we see that there's deficiencies, we can help them outline the courses that they need to take to get back on track. And it even comes down to the 10th or 100th of a point in their core GPA when we do those preliminary reads. The NCAA does a lot of that legwork for us now in the eligibility center, but we still will do that. So we'll see transcripts throughout the junior year, even if the junior year courses aren't finished yet. just knowing that they're enrolled in a full year of French, French 3 or whatever it might be. We'll plug that in on their worksheet. And then when it comes to their senior year, we'll get updated transcripts and we'll have the junior year grades in. So then we can update the worksheet we've already got going for that particular student and just continue to make sure that they're on pace.
Okay. So we talked about the 10-7 rule. So now my child is a senior in high school. Comes down with a little senioritis, so he's doing great, but he fails his English class, and he graduates with 15 credits. Okay, so you need 16 credits, core class credits, before you graduate high school, correct?
You do. As long as a student has graduated high school on time, meaning within 4 years of when they started the 9th grade as determined by the NCAA, they can take one core course after high school graduation to meet the 16 requirement, or if they have to boost their GPA, they might take something to replace something else that's not locked in.
So we talked about prep school getting that one credit. Is that something that he could take over the summertime?
Yes.
Okay. So, and then I think this is a huge question. I'm going back to my make pretend student athlete son again. So now he's in 9th grade. He hasn't quite grown the way that I want him to grow, or his game is not evolving the way that I want him to evolve. So I hold him back. I now reclassify him as a 9th grader. We've completed our 9th grade year academically, but I hold him back and say, you're going to do the 9th grade over. Does he take 9th grade classes over? What kind of classes is he taking? Because we've already passed 9th grade classes. He's supposed to be in 10th grade. What kind of classes is he going to take in the 9th grade?
You got to be careful with that situation. We do see that a couple times a year where students end up repeating a year and they take the same classes over again, and it's duplicative coursework, and you can only use the course once, and you've still got to try to meet the 10-7 rule by the end of the junior year. So I think you got to get creative. You still have to meet whatever your school's high school graduation requirements are, and whatever the university's admission standards that you're looking at. They require certain levels of math or a certain level of English and so on. So you got to get creative with your guidance counselor and see, are there other kinds of core courses that I can take if I'm repeating the 9th grade year that are going to benefit me for initial eligibility purposes, but also, for admissions purposes. So if I took earth science and I did well in earth science, I'm not going to take earth science again. Maybe I'll try to do biology in my 9th grade. So that way you're still making academic progress. Now, the caveat with that is if you repeat a grade, your expected graduation date is actually going to be when you finish your junior year of high school.
Correct. So your clock doesn't. So I think that's the misconception with some people. Some people think that the clock restart, like it stops. So as long as I don't go on to the 10th grade, I'm still good in the 9th grade, and that's not necessarily. Well, it's not true.
Correct. So that student who repeats in the 9th, the 10th, or the 11th grade, by the end of the 11th grade, their expected high school graduation date will be, and then essentially they're not graduating on time from the high school, so they wouldn't be able to use one core course after graduation to meet eligibility standards. So that's something that's really got to be monitored closely with the parents and with the guidance counselor and a recruiting coach. If there's a recruiting coach involved, they'll communicate with their compliance office and help get assistance on making sure that this kid can still get it done.
Okay, so if my kid didn't graduate at the end of their junior year, they couldn't use their senior year to make it all up, because technically they've already should have graduated already, correct?
That's correct. You can only use one core course after graduation. if you graduated on time, which that student will not have graduated on time.
Okay. Okay. So again, we're here with Melissa Peach, Associate Athletic Director at UAlbany, answering any and all questions that you might have about the initially eligibility system. So I'm going to take a couple minutes and wait for any questions that you might have. If you do not have any questions, then we're going to wrap it up here. But I am going to post this video for you to go back and view and take all the points away, or send it to any of your parents or kids in your program who might feel like, or you might feel like needs the information. So
while we're waiting for some questions, I have some SAT, ACT exam updates that I can provide. While it's not necessarily applicable to the kids who are going to be graduating spring, summer of 2020,
right.
they've had the SAT, they canceled their June test. So beginning in August, they're going to start administering exams monthly, with the exception of September. So they're going to do one August 29th. They're going to do it October 3rd, November 7th, December 5th. All this information is on their website. When you go to the College Board website, they have a disclaimer at the top that's like COVID-19 Q&A or FAQ. And obviously this whole situation is changing every week, so the administration of those exams could even change. But if a student has already registered for March or May, they will get a refund if they registered for the SAT and that those two tests were canceled, as well as the June one. They will get a refund. Conversely, with the ACT, they canceled their test for April, and then they are going to be doing outreach to anyone who's already registered and do free rescheduling. So they have tests set up for June 13th and July 18th right now. So if you have a prospective student who maybe still needs it for admissions purposes for a college, or an underclassman, maybe somebody in their junior year who hasn't taken it yet or needs to take it again to get the higher scores. So the ACT website as well has a whole COVID-19 section. So definitely check that out. And their social media accounts, the NCAA Eligibility Center, the College Board, and ACT are great sites to follow for information on Twitter.
Awesome. Now, this has been great, and I think everybody that came over here got a lot out of this, and I appreciate you coming on such short notice and supplying us with all this great information that I think everybody needs to hear. I think more people need to hear it. So like I said, we're going to post this video up and make sure that everybody can view this video. So if you want to see this video in full, please message me and I will get you the link to this video. All right, Melissa, thank you so much. Stay safe and work on your social distancing, and we will talk soon.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right, bye.